Hey, Jeff.
What? Well,
see this?
Yeah, what's that?
This is what we did not give away this week.
What?
Because nobody sent us a solution to the challenge. The challenge was to take the code that we wrote in last week's puzzle, 83, the solution, and turn it into a component. Hey, come on, guys. Where are you? What, are you sleeping out there?
Yeah.
Right. So we took the code and we did turn it into a component, and that's what we're going to show you right now. So, oh, by the way, this is Blazor Puzzle, episode 84. I'm Carl Franklin from AppVNext. That's Jeff Fritz from Microsoft. Okay, now you can spin the video and the
now
music
we can do the thing now. Yeah,
do the thing with the stuff.
So we asked our viewers, hey, this breadcrumbs implementation, it involved copying and pasting this implementation of how to work with a state and passing around the location management with the navigation manager in every single one of the pages. Yeah. And it really felt like something that should be a component, so we can hide all that logic, put it in one place, and render that component, that breadcrumb, easily in our layout.
Yeah, it was violating the dry principle, right? Don't repeat yourself.
Yep.
So when you have multiple copies of the same code except for a little piece of data like we did last week, that smells bad. So it was immediately apparent to both of us that we need to turn this into a component. We asked you guys to try it. Nobody came through. We felt a little sad about that because we really wanted to give away a mug. But we came up with our own solution. And so, Jeff, why don't you show it off for us?
Yeah, let me walk through this for you. So I'm going to run over here to Visual Studio Code. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see that here's our solution. And I took what was our state bag and I turned it into, I called it BreadcrumbState.
Yeah.
And I created a record called Breadcrumb because now I want to pass in the string title of the page that we're looking at, that we want to put on the breadcrumb, and the URL.
Both of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I took all of that logic that we had wrapped up inside of each page that was generating the back button and capturing the current location and all that stuff. And we wrapped it up inside of this component that I call BreadcrumbNav.
Okay.
So this takes in a navigation manager, implements the iDisposable, and you can see it was doing a lot of the things that we were copying and pasting into each page.
Right.
So, if we had some breadcrumbs, give us a back button at the top.
Yep.
And be able to handle the navigation manager, register that location changing handler, and be able to pop and handle the number of items that are inside of that stack of breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Finally, a go back method down here to navigate backwards as we're using that back button.
It's pretty much exactly the same code that we had duplicated in home, counter, and weather. Now it's just in one place.
Yep. And to render the breadcrumbs, we had that in the main layout initially. Well, I want to be able to just put breadcrumbs. I don't want to inject anything. I don't want to have to manage any disposable objects. Right. Let me just inject the breadcrumbs component, and that component is going to take in that breadcrumb state, take in the navigation manager, and render those breadcrumbs as a set of links with, here's the URL, here's the page title, and it's real easy for us to generate and have these breadcrumbs placed wherever we want on the page.
Now, that's something that I did in main layout, but I put it like up in the title bar area, right?
Yep.
And I just had, fudged it myself. So this is a really good way to cut. And you could customize this. You can put it wherever you want.
Oh, yeah.
I
Now
like it.
there is a little bit of a change that I had to make for this. Because both of these were registering a navigation change handler so that they could understand whether or not the page was being refreshed. We were doing enhanced navigation because when enhanced navigation happened, we need to notify state has changed, so we repaint the content of the breadcrumbs component.
Right.
But over in the navigation component, I started pushing the breadcrumb in the on after render. So the page is already rendered. Now let's go add the breadcrumb. And this means if you click the back button, we actually need to go back twice. We need to remove the current page and then the previous page. And that's the page we're going to. And that's what you see in the go back. It goes and removes the current page and then says, all right, the page that I'm going back to is this one.
All right. It's a little different. What I had done
Slightly.
last week is I started by pushing home right out off the bat. And then anytime I wanted to navigate, I hook that and I push where we are onto the stack and only pop it off when we do the go back. But it's just slightly different. But here's the good news, folks.
Just moving the events. Yes.
It works. And you don't have to, this is all goo that you don't have to write now.
Absolutely. So 3 files, BreadcrumbNav, the breadcrumbs, and our BreadcrumbState. And this needed to be registered in Program CS.
Okay.
And you can see it right there.
Yep.
And it works. It does its thing.
Let's look at the counter, home counter, and weather pages and see how you instantiate that component.
Sure. So we'll go back over here and we'll look at in the pages. Here's the home page, and we just specify the breadcrumb navigator, and the display text for this page is home.
Now, can you have pages that don't participate in the breadcrumbs by just not having the
by just not including this? Mm-hmm.
Very good. Okay, so let's see it in action.
Yeah. All right. So here I am in the page, in the home page, and when I go navigate to counter, it adds the home page to the top. Navigate to the weather, and there's the counter appearing, and I can click back. It goes back to counter, back, and it goes back to the home page.
And you can also click those links.
Yes. So I'll click through to counter, I'll click through to weather, and if I click counter, it goes over there and removes it from the stack, from the list of breadcrumbs.
That's so cool. Well, I'm psyched. I'm glad that we finished this up into a component, even though we didn't really have any help. But that's the breaks. We're thinking up something for next week.
But
I don't know what it
Carl, is. I've got one more thing to show you.
Oh, okay.
I took this a step further.
This apparently is something that I haven't seen, and Jeff hasn't shared with me yet. So I'm gonna be surprised.
When I look at that set of breadcrumbs and how it renders up there, I'm hard coding a little bit of HTML and navigation there.
Okay.
And if I don't want to use that navigation, that presentation, that's kind of messy for me to change. I'm going to have to come into this file and change it and then roll it out to all my pages.
Yeah.
What if we could turn that into a template? And that's what I've done. So now, in this version, I've introduced a render fragment for the separator. So if you don't want to use a hyphen, we'll use hyphen as the default. You can change that if you'd like. You can pass in a render fragment. And we'll have a link template. Now, this is an interesting bit of trickery that I'm doing here with the render fragment. Render fragment, we typically expect is going to pass back one type that is whatever you're iterating over, something like that, right?
Right.
So I'm actually going to pass back a tuple.
Oh,
And the 1 is an action for the string to navigate to.
you're tricky.
Yeah. So if there is no link template, just give me the default rendering. If otherwise, pass back the item and my navigate to method that actually does the navigation down here.
Now, this template kind of looks like a component in and of itself. Maybe we're confusing people about what's the difference between a component and a render fragment. Maybe we should talk about that.
Sure. Right? Render fragments are blocks of HTML and Razor content that you're going to pass into a component that is going to be rendered and placed on screen somewhere. So
the render fragment doesn't really have code, except if it's in the markup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A render fragment doesn't have C# code that's being passed with it.
Yeah.
It's a block of Razor code that exists between two tags.
Yeah.
So if I take this and we look at the render fragments that I implemented to change the layout. So here's my breadcrumbs component. And just like you would see with like a table tag or an unordered list, I have child components that are those render fragments. So I have a render fragment for the separator. That was a parameter. Here's the render fragment. And inside of that is just straight HTML.
Yep.
But my link template is going to receive a context that I call breadcrumb. And I'm going to create a series of buttons here. And when you click, I'm going to call that navigate to method and pass through the item URL. And if the title of the page that we're navigating to is home, I'm going to emit a little house emote.
Oh, nice.
And then the text for the title.
Now, you may be a little bit confused because Jeff said render fragments don't contain C# code, but that is C# code. However, it's the same C# code that you would put in a Razor markup. It's not like code behind. It doesn't have a class with code, right?
A code block.
A code block, yeah.
Like we would have at the bottom. It's strictly Razor markup. So you can have @if, @for types of statements in there. So let's run that one more time. And you can see now I've got my little house home button up there. And as I navigate around, I get that extra little icon that appears because I've customized my breadcrumb using a template.
That's so cool. Very good. All right. Well, wow, that was more than anybody asked for, including us. So well done, Jeff. And thanks for the puzzle. And that's it for this week. And if you've got a puzzle, whether or not you have a solution, please send it to Jeff and me at blazorpuzzle@appvnext.com. And, if we use it on the show, you could win one of these fine Corinthian leather slices, dices, Blazor puzzle mug.
Made of the finest ceramic.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Take care, friends.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out blazortrain.com and the .netshow.com for more great content.